Big thanks go out to Tywa for supporting today's video via Patreon. Finally, we get Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver versus Najeela, Muldrotha, and Muldrotha. Been waiting many years for Wilhelt to release and finally get to play with it on the channel. Sometimes recently I've not been in the mood for commentary and just kinda wasting a lot of effort to just not release the recording because early scoops or whatever. And this was one such video, so I'm going to go through the replay feature and show you the video as though it were live gameplay. Kept this opener, it's pretty bad, but I'm hoping the Surveil Land can get us into ramp or something. The hand before this was even worse, a one-lander I think, in typical Magic Online fashion. Muldrotha opens up with a turn 1 Sol Ring, and Najeela throwing down a turn 1 warrior, that is Mardu War Reaper. We can either start off with the Shambling Ghast off a basic or go for the Undercity Sewers and obviously decide for the tap land there. I think we keep the 2-mana Augur zombie that draws cards and loses life when zombies die. We'll find out on the next turn. Drew into Ashnod's Altar this turn. I have built this as a combo variant as much as I would like to play Battlecruiser zombies. Commander has left Battlecruiser well and truly behind on Magic Online, so there's no way you can run decks like that, unfortunately. So going for a combo variant here. And instantly just proving why. A Demonic Tutor, Sol Ring, all in the first 2 turns from Muldrotha. Plays a Springleaf Drum, but does at least miss a land drop here. Cryptolith Rite for the Najeela player, wants to make lots of tokens and then be able to tap them down in order to get the extra combat with the commander. So here we see what we left on top with the Surveil Land. Oh no, it was a Felwar Stone. We do draw into that zombie at some point, but I'm misremembering what we kept on top. Obvious that we play the Felwar Stone here. And then with the black mana from Felwar Stone, we can play the Shambling Ghast and hold it up for probably a treasure token, maybe -1/-1. Dorothy Voidwalker we don't want to see in Muldrotha because, well, it's going to be difficult to get rid of. It will be very easy for our opponent to keep replaying that, and that gets rid of our death triggers, which we definitely want to see in this combo list. That will break our entire deck if it stays in play. Stuff like Vengeful Dead will not trigger anymore, and we do want to be going infinite with stuff like that. Luckily the other Muldrotha player deals with it straight away, a Cursed Marauder. So Dorothy Voidwalker ends up in the bin, the others stay in exile, so we don't get our death trigger like I said from the Shambling Ghast. Would have liked the treasure from that. And Dorothy doesn't exile to its own ability, so could still come back like I said. Najeela into play after that, managed to dodge the Edict effect. Okay, now I was jumping a turn ahead apparently. It's this turn we draw into the Undead Augur, so hopefully be able to draw some cards to that at some point, but what we've got in hand is not looking particularly wonderful at the moment. I imagine I just go for my commander here, even though it doesn't do anything for a while. And yeah, play out Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver for the first time. The big hitters keep on coming. A Hermit Druid is a means of milling your entire library if you want to. Not sure if our opponent's going to do that this early in the game. And that is a Rhystic Study for the other Muldrotha player. Haven't seen a weak card from either of the Muldrotha decks yet. Bright Hearth Baronet is going to discount Warriors, so we'll be able to play Warriors for 1 less. Swings in down the middle with both Najeela and the token. So making his first token to the commander, and we take another turn here. I remember wondering at this point, should I be holding on to Otawara so that we can bounce Dorothy Voidwalker at some point and combo off, but with the mana looking so clunky at the minute, I think I do decide to just play that as a land, draw into an offer you can't refuse in order to try to protect a combo at some point. So if my memory serves me, I think it's just Vengeful Dead here. Really not hopeful that I'll do anything this game at this point. Getting into bits of combos here and there, and there are 1,000,001 combos in the deck, so there's every chance that we can do a bit of something, and as I always preach on this channel, it's worth playing it out to see what happens. So pay the tax on Rhystic Study and get on with the turn. Or get on with the next player's turn. Don't think I swing in with Wilhelt here. Thought we were going to see self-mill from the Hermit Druid, but instead our opponent looking for a land, I assume, with Baleful Strix. So plays a Gaia's Cradle and activates that in order to only mill a few cards. That was, he's got in his graveyard now, a Glacial Chasm, a Cephalid Colosseum, Necromancy, and an Uro. We appear to have skipped through a bunch of turns here. The Muldrotha player threw down Fiend Artisan, and now Najeela is swinging in with everything down the middle. Did manage to get a land by turn 5 over here. A mana confluence, but still really struggling on colours, so Najeela trying to get rid of him before he's got 2 Muldrotha players to worry about. So after that, after the attacks, played Dragon Scale General, gets a big bolster and just decides to throw 6+ counters onto a token. Now the client seems to have slowed down for our turn, luckily. So there we see Relentless Dead. Not sure how much work this would do, but decided to put it in the deck anyway, because again there are some bits of combos you can do with it, with Rooftop Storm and a Phyrexian Altar. Sacrifice this for a black to bounce it back to hand, play it for free with Rooftop Storm, and that is infinite ETBs and death triggers. So the only land we get to make this turn is Cabal Coffers, and we've only got 2 swamps in play at the moment, so we'll need another one in order to have that generate at least a little bit of mana. Decide on playing the Undead Augur here in order to try to just start drawing into something that's actually relevant. Do pay the Rhystic Study tax to try and keep Muldrotha off these lands he's so desperate for, because we need to buy ourselves a lot of time as well. And then as much as I don't want to give up on Vengeful Dead, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. We can generate the mana to get Relentless Dead into play by sacrificing Relentless Dead to the tower, and we can also draw a card to that as well. And then the Vengeful Dead will be replaced with a Decayed Zombie thanks to our commander, so I think, if my memory serves me, we do sacrifice the Vengeful Dead here. So yeah, that kind of seals it. Might as well swing it in down the middle for a free lightning bolt before sacrificing it. And yeah, there we go, sacked it to the Phyrexian Tower, so we've got double black floating now. Get our Decayed Zombie, lose a life, draw a card, and each opponent loses a life because Vengeful Dead triggers on itself. Lose a life and draw into another zombie, and Murderous Rider can destroy something with Swift End as well. Play Relentless Dead and pay the Rhystic Study tax for it. And then with Wilhelt's trigger at the end of the turn, I think, yes, I do decide to sacrifice the Decayed Zombie because I'm not going to be swinging in with it. We do get into that swamp that we wanted for Cabal Coffers. Argument to be made for not playing Cabal Coffers that turn until we drew into a card with the Undead Augur, but turns out we wouldn't have got into a land in time anyway. Only drew into that one at the end step. Oracle of Muldaya for Muldrotha, able to play lands off the top, and 2 per turn. Revealing off the top with the Oracle a Mesmeric Orb, so gonna play into the hands of potentially 3 players here. Obviously in a zombie list I can make use of the graveyard as well, but the self-mill players can definitely make use of the orb. So floated 3 mana with the Guy's Cradle there, and it is Reclamation Sage, has managed to play a swamp as well, 3 cards left in hand. And everyone's paying the Rhystic Study tax, luckily, because they're worried about Muldrotha over there. I'm thinking that he'll go for blowing up the Rhystic Study here, but instead decides to target the Cryptolith Rite, which is a good call because he does have the creatures in order to tap down with Najeela's ability and get the additional combat phase. See if the second Muldrotha player manages to get into another land off the top. He does have a full grip, and floats a blue mana with his creature, and the Springleaf Drum then sacrifices it to Flare of Cultivation, so doesn't have to put mana into this, but shooters out a couple of basics, so an island into play tapped and plays the forest from hand for the turn. So finally starting to see the mana by turn 6, and that allows him enough mana into his Muldrotha the Gravetide. Only 1 permanent in his graveyard at the moment is Fiend Artisan, and we're just hoping not to see the 5 colours from our opponent. Luckily it was a tap land he had in Path of Ancestry, so not going to see multiple combats this turn seemingly. Instead throws out another discounted warrior, that is Avon Windguide. So it has Flying and Vigilance and gives the same 2 tokens, meaning that they can swing in and tap down with something like Cryptolith Rite, so was definitely worth blowing this up with the Reclamation Sage. A good call by our opponent. And as vengeance for blowing up the enchantment he needed, going to take in some tokens to the left. Takes all 4 of those in, so that is 7, 8, 9 and 10 damage. Triggers Najeela 4 times. And that has the middle Muldrotha player scoop, which I would have understood more clearly if the Najeela player had swung in at him yet again. But he just threw down his commander and then scooped, so there we are. So the 7/7 was blocked by Baleful Strix, as you would imagine, and at the end of the turn, the Dragon Scale General did see the tapped creatures that entered with the commander So 4 plus counters onto another token. Najeela starting to look scary. We draw into an island. We'll be playing the swamp this turn, I dare say, because we'll be able to tap down Cabal Coffers for 3 so that this is actually making some mana instead of just sitting there. So we do that straight away, tap it for 3 mana. And the Death Baron is what is going to protect us at least a little bit from some attacks. Obviously, this thing gives flying, so could hold up the Swift End, I'm thinking, so that if they do swing in, then they'll lose some creatures in the process. Maybe we could deter them from swinging at all, but also need to start thinking about blowing up Najeela itself as well, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens through the next turn. A trick that I thought about here as well, we don't sacrifice anything with Wilhelt, I don't think. We can sacrifice the Relentless Dead with Phyrexian Tower for 2 black, meaning we'll be floating 2 black. This will be on the stack. Use 1 of that black to bounce it back to hand, and then the other 2 for the Swift End. Still allows us to hold up and offer you Can't Refuse, plus we'll draw a card to Relentless Dead with the Undead Augur, so that's the loose plan at the moment. Gaia's Cradle, tap for 3 mana. We are seeing the Bojuka Bog now, and we don't have a stacked graveyard, but I am hoping that we do get to reanimate Vengeful Dead at some point, because it's a combo piece, and we don't want to be searching through for another Aristocrat effect if we don't have to, because the pieces are very slowly starting to come together. Unfortunately, our opponent has multiple land drops a turn, so it throws out Muldrotha, and then plays a land from the graveyard, so Glacial Chasm. I think he already played a basic, so that might be his 2 lands for the turn, I'm not sure. But our opponent can be forgiven for not worrying too much about 1 Vengeful Dead in the graveyard. So a Glacial Chasm has to sacrifice a swamp, but he won't take any damage to this threatening Najeela player now. And we can just hope that Wilhelt will be underestimated here. We saw the Mesmeric Orb previously. Our opponent decides to throw it onto the battlefield and then activates the Hermit Druid. He's already played a land from his graveyard this turn, so he can't, even if he has another land drop, can't go for Bojuka Bog now anyway. Also milled Kaya's Ghost Form, Spore Frog, Verdant Catacombs, and a Sakashima. So with cards like Glacial Chasm and Spore Frog, we're grateful that we're not going Battlecruiser Magic, because not sure our weak zombie deck would do anything about that, but luckily, like I said, this is combo. Don't need to worry about combat damage in this list. So do manage to dodge a Bojuka Bog. We'll go through to Najeela's turn. He's going to have 3 cards in hand, so I'm just hoping that he doesn't have any kind of protection for his commander. We don't want to blow it up during the Muldrotha player's turn, only for him to just recast it and swing in anyway. So it's a risk we have to take here. Cards of note milled with Mesmeric Orb. There's a Mindblade Render. Lands, obviously. Jared Carthalion. Cathar's Crusade. And an Anointed Procession. So our opponent goes straight through to combat, doesn't play anything with the 3 cards in hand, so we do go for activating the Phyrexian Tower here. Sacrificing the Relentless Dead. It will always put 2 triggers on the stack. 1 is black to bounce it back to hand, which we do pay. And then we can pay X mana, where X is the mana value of a creature we want to reanimate. Wilhelt makes a zombie token. Undead Augur draws us a card. Not thinking that the Death Touch is going to hold too much back for us, because they've got that flying army over there. Draw into Nykthos to start generating a decent sum of mana. We've got good devotion to black, especially if we get this back into play. Kind of pays for itself. So say yes to Relentless Dead, bounces it back to hand. We've got a floating black plus these 2 equals a Swift End onto the Najeela. So with that on the stack, that does get successfully blown up, so our opponent didn't have any kind of protection seemingly. Have to assume he would have protected his commander if he did. So I'm fully expecting our opponent to swing in at us here, but I was expecting that anyway, because he's got Flying and Vigilance, he might as well swing, and Glacial Chasm kind of switches off his plays over here. To my amazement, he doesn't deal damage to us. That would have been 8 plus 5 is 13. So could have dealt a nice chunk of change to us, but decided not to for whatever reason. And then on his second main, could replay Najeela, but I don't think he does that either, strangely. Would actually be 4 mana thanks to the discount from this. So Dragon Scale General triggers again, can put more plus counters. Oh, actually he can't because he doesn't have any tapped creatures. So a successful turn for us, avoiding combat from Najeela. Question is, can we do anything? Our first Mesmeric Orb, and that is Soul Ring, Zombie Apocalypse, Fleshbag Marauder, Sink into Stupor, Midnight Reaper, and Overcharged Amalgam, which is a counter spell on a creature. So see what we draw into for the turn. I'm hoping for something like Rooftop Storm here, I've mentioned already, because we could get some kind of combo going with that. But even if we did draw into it here, I'm not sure we could combo immediately. I'm just hoping that we don't see it milled because we can't fish it out of the graveyard. So I think what I do here is go for Relentless Dead again. I'm debating whether or not we even need to get down Murderous Rider right now. I want to maximise the amount of mana that we can generate and do stuff with. So it's create mana with Cabal Coffers again. Played the Nykthos already because I'm worried about misclicking on a different land. So Relentless Dead into play straight away means that Nykthos just generates an additional 2 mana, so as I said before, that pays for itself. I think getting down Ashnod's Altar here would make sense. Tap down Nykthos for 7 black mana, and I remember debating, is it worth getting this down just for the additional black mana and devotion? Then you've got another body in play. Gain a little bit of life by blocking tokens, but I really haven't planned the turn out that cleverly, so I don't think I bother playing it here. Yeah, so we do just stick with the 7 mana on the Nykthos, and do get down a sack outlet, which will unlock everything in an Aristocrats deck like this. So sacrifice the token, or the Relentless Dead. Maybe I'm looking to reanimate the... I'm worried about the Bojuka Bog over there, so I think I might go for reanimating Vengeful Dead. So sacrifice the Relentless Dead. We have 4 mana floating from Nykthos, 2 from the Ashnod's Altar. So the 2 dead triggers. Wilhelt makes a token, Augur draws us a card. And I'm putting Relentless Dead on the stack first so that we can draw with Undead Augur. That might influence what we do with our floating mana. Draw into a Rot Hulk, which will also combo off with a Rooftop Storm. And the more opponents that we've got left in play, the better. But I always play around the fact that we've only got 1 opponent with this, because we know Magic Online players don't like to stick around for long. So the Relentless Dead is pointed at the Vengeful Dead over here. So we'd have to pay 4 mana for that. I don't think no, I haven't sacrificed any Decayed tokens to generate mana. So yeah, I did put black mana into that, which I don't think I should have done in hindsight. I should have sacrificed this to Ashnod's Altar, because I doubt we're going to be relying on swinging in with those anyway. These are just bodies to sacrifice. Either way, we end up with Vengeful Dead back in play, away from that Bojuka Bog. Obviously pay the black on Relentless Dead in order to get it back into play. And then sacrifice a token to this again. Yes, we do. So Phyrexian Tower gives us 3 black mana. Well, it was 2 black mana and 1 floating. Draw to Undead Augur. Relentless or Vengeful Dead is triggering again to have each opponent lose a life, which does get around cards like the Glacial Chasm. And I'm just kind of treading water here, not sure what to do, just slowly building up some kind of a board and trying to top deck into something. The more cards we can draw, the better. Do end up drawing into something really good, assuming that we can get it through in Raise the Palisade. Our opponents each have 3 cards in hand, so could have some kind of counter magic, but I try it anyway here. In fact, learning from my previous mistake, first what I do is sacrifice the token in order to generate Ashnod's Altar mana. Draws us another card and drains our opponent, or bleeds our opponent again. Ebon Death Draco Lich, another combo piece, again with Rooftop Storm. This will be a much easier one to go off with Rooftop Storm, so if we can get into some kind of tutor, that might be the way. Anyway, Windmill Slam, the Raise the Palisade, which is a tribal board wipe, so getting rid of all our opponent's creatures. Najeela well and truly slowed down here, and that means we can swing in over there. Yeah, we take all of these over there, so that is 9 damage in total. Playing the Raise the Palisade did mean that we couldn't keep the Relentless Dead in play, unfortunately. My other play that I was thinking of was we could go for, similar to what we just did with the Vengeful Dead, we could have gone for Overcharged Amalgam being reanimated at instant speed in order to exploit a token and counter something. That would be an interesting interaction with Relentless Dead and Ashnod's Altar, if you've got the surplus mana for it, but obviously decide to just wipe the board instead. Nice simple play. Keeps Muldrotha and Najeela out of play. And it also switches off this Gaia's Cradle somewhat as well, so if our opponent just has to tap out into his commander, then he's not really doing much of anything else. Probably decides to take life to Glacial Chasm to keep it in play. And yeah, it goes down to 27, so as for the mills, a bunch of lands, a Ledger Shredder, Underrealm Lich, Walking Ballista, he's got combos of his own, and an Ashnod's Altar of his own as well. Problem is with Muldrotha decks, if you struggle to keep Muldrotha in play, your deck can kind of be switched off. With 8 cards in hand, managed to play a land for the turn. Noteworthy that he does have Command Beacon if he wants to not pay the command attacks, but we know Muldrotha's in his hand at the moment. So it does replay his commander from hand, and manages with the Gaia's Cradle now to play himself a Sylvan Safekeeper. So has gone for some kind of landfall variant maybe. And there we go, Najeela just decided to time out there. I don't know if he misclicked on the previous turn, he meant to attack us, or meant to get down his commander on the second main phase after we destroyed it. But he was pretty talkative in the chat when he was winning. And then as soon as the tide turned, he suddenly decided to not talk anymore and completely time out. So, small victories. Anyway, that means we get another turn. So, Mesmeric Orb continuing to do the mill thing. That's Liliana, Dreadhorde General, again hoping that we don't see Rooftop Storm here. Talisman, Living Death, Demonic Tutor, Skull Clamp getting some good mills off us, Pact of the Serpent and Bontu's Monument. Noteworthy that Bontu's Monument doesn't trigger on entry, it's on cast, so you have to be casting something like Gravecrawler to combo off with this, as opposed to having them re-enter play with something like Relentless Dead. Anyway, draw into Withering Torment, which we might be able to use on Muldrotha. I think we just end up going for Relentless Dead again here. Can't actually remember what we do. So play the Underground River again. Cabal Coffer's not tapping for much, but the third swamp has made a difference. And do go for Relentless Dead. Then that allows us to tap Nykthos for 8 mana this time. Sacrifice Relentless Dead to the Ashnod's Altar. And we're looking to reanimate something here. Do we have... Ah, there we go, I've missed the Fleshbag Marauder. Yeah, I was just looking for it in the graveyard, but I couldn't see it, I thought it was further down. So an early mill from the Mesmeric Orb is going to do all the good in the world for us here. So we've got 8 mana floating, or 8 black mana floating, 2 from Ashnod's Altar, and we're obviously looking to reanimate the Merciless Executioner here, which is an Edict effect. So again, token from Wilhelt, draw a card, and bleed an opponent. Or bleed all of our opponents for 1. Draw into Agadeem's Awakening. Before I decide to spend the mana, I start totting up to see if it's worth doing this. We've got a 3-drop, another 3-drop there with Midnight Reaper, Overcharged Amalgam we might want to hold on to for the interaction with Relentless Dead at instant speed, like I said before. So there's not really much of relevance to reanimate with Agadeem's Awakening, so I do decide to still go for the Merciless Executioner Edict plan here. So 3 mana into that brings that straight back into play. We do have to sacrifice it to its own ability because it's more used to us in the graveyard for reanimation at the moment. Although Ashnod's Altar could sacrifice it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So our opponent goes for Sylvan Safekeeper being sacrificed. We have another zombie die, so Wilhelt, a Decayed Zombie, draw a card and bleed. Draws us into Diagraph Colossus, which will make us a decent number of tokens. Obviously pay to get the Relentless Dead back again, so we've still got 6 mana floating, and the Fleshbag Marauder is in our bin again, so we can just do that again and keep Muldrotha out of play. Decided to sacrifice a zombie token, I think, there. The client just zipped through it really quickly, but we drew another card, that is Meat Hut Massacre. We could just get down for 2 in order to drain our opponents out quicker. Probably a clever idea to hold on to it as a board wipe though. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I wanted the Diagraph Colossus out first, because 1, it would get more plus counters, but also it will generate more tokens the more zombies we play, so I sacrificed a zombie in order to do that and just spend 1 black mana. So 5 floating now, and now we go for Relentless Dead. Casting a zombie triggers Diagraph Colossus, so gets us the first token with that, which is obviously more sack fodder for us with Ashnod's Altar and the like. And these tokens from the Diagraph Colossus do not have Decayed, so they will trigger our commander and be replaced with Decayed zombies. So I sacrificed the Decayed Zombie there to Ashnod's Altar. I think I'm just trying to make as much colourless mana as possible for the Relentless Dead, which allows us to draw again. Kindred Discovery might be a bit too late for that, although it would have done a hell of a lot of work for us in the mid to late game here. So now sacrificing Relentless Dead, we have the black mana to bounce it, and 4 floating mana to put into reanimating the Merciless Executioner. Get our opponent down to 22, we draw into another land. Now we've still got 1 colourless mana floating, 3 black. Fleshbag Marauder will successfully deal with Muldrotha, again switching off the Gaia's Cradle. Our opponent has 5 cards in hand, and does still have protection with that Glacial Chasm, don't forget. And at this point, once we deal with our opponent's commander, he just decides to time out as well. Didn't concede, just decided to walk away from the keyboard and leave us waiting for the 4 minutes to time out or whatever it was. We don't have this one won, but we are controlling the board nicely. I'm not entirely sure what I would have done from this point. It's probably a case of play out the Relentless Dead again so that we can, as I've pointed out a few times, we'll be able to hold up the Overcharged Amalgam in order to counter something if we need to, as long as Relentless Dead is in play. At that point, we would have had 2 mana floating, so maybe sacrifice a token with Phyrexian Tower just to get the Ebb and Death into play. Because if we do look out and get into that Rooftop Storm, then we can sacrifice this, play it for free from the graveyard, sacrifice it, play it for free from the graveyard, do that infinitely for infinite bleed with the Vengeful Dead, so that was probably the play we were trying to go after. But we didn't have it won by any means, so it's a shame that our opponent didn't play it out, but there we are. Hopefully you all enjoyed this visit to Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver. It just released before Christmas and I didn't realise it. I thought we were a few months away from seeing this. But very grateful that it's finally arrived on Magic Online. Let me know what you think of these replay games as opposed to the live games. Sometimes these are just easier for me to record. I'm not always in the mental state of mind to record live gameplay. Sometimes I just want to be quiet and play a game and then I can at least cherry pick the best of a bad bunch and only record audio once. Let me know what you think about that, and a massive thank you to the patrons for your support of the channel as well. Hopefully see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.